Welcome to this session. Just a friendly reminder, if you could please keep your microphones on mute during the presentation. And if you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to place those in the chat. And we can either answer them throughout or have a Q&A at the end of the session as well. I am excited to introduce your speaker today, Angela Rush. Angela is a highly skilled K-12 educational leader with over 26 years of experience working in 2 of the largest school districts in South Carolina. She holds a master's degree in educational administration and a master's degree in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in literacy studies. She is currently pursuing a doctorate in education in educational practice and innovation with a concentration in education systems improvement from the University of South Carolina. At the school level, she has been a teacher, a reading specialist, and an instructional coach. At the district level, she has served in various roles, including literacy learning specialist, coordinator of K-8 instruction, director of professional development and standards, Title II director, and she has led reform efforts for ESOL services for multilingual students. Currently, she is the director of the Office of Translation and Interpretation Services for Charleston County School District. Through her diverse experiences, she has gained unique knowledge and perspectives on how school districts can improve systemic practices to ensure success for all students and meaningful communication for families. I will hand it to you, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you for joining this session today. It is focused on how we as districts can achieve equity and communication. And I want to just discuss with you some of the things that we're doing in my district to drive change. Now, you may, as you hear this presentation, you'll notice I have a very thick Southern accent. People tell me every day how much they like to hear me talk, and sometimes that kind of scares me. But nonetheless, you may be wondering, why is she doing this work? Why does it matter? Hello, I don't know what happened, but we will try this again. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys hear me okay again?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what happened. But nonetheless, he was very successful in school. And one thing that I believe is very important is that my son had an academic advantage because I was an educator. I knew what he needed. I was involved in the school. I knew about events. I went to parent-teacher conferences. I was an advocate for him. But my child is not special. He's precious to me, but every parent, their child is precious to them, and they need to be able to be advocates for their children. All families do. I love this quote here. It says, "There's no more powerful advocate than a parent armed with information and options." And it's our role as educators to ensure that all parents have the information they need to be an advocate for their child. We need to give them advantages so they can help their children, just like I was able to help mine. I work in Charleston, South Carolina, and I see this bridge every day. And it's a reminder to me that it's my job to help build cultural bridges so all families can be advocates for their children. And it's very important because, we see how the diversity in our classrooms, the diversity in our schools, the Hispanic population is growing tremendously, as you can see here in terms of this research. And you can look right here in the area where we live in South Carolina, and you can see the changing demographics in the students and families that are represented in our schools. So we have to take that knowledge and know that we have to change our practices in order to meet the needs of all students and all families. In Charleston, you will see pineapples everywhere, and pineapple is a symbol of hospitality. Back in the colonial days, captains would go out and travel, and then when they would come back, they would put a pineapple on a stake in their, in front of their homes, and that was a symbol saying, "Come, come to me. I want to tell you my story." And our schools should be a place where we welcome all families, and we say, "We want to hear your story. We want to know about you. We want to know about your culture. We want to embrace diversity and express that in all that we do." And you can't do that if you don't have an environment where families can communicate with you and educators can communicate with families. So this is essential work, and we need to be focused on driving change in our districts. Improvement is a journey, and a journey, it's all about learning. So I hope today that I share some of the information that I've learned thus far, and just know that it's a continuous journey, and we have to embrace that concept and know that we've got to learn and grow each and every day to do this type of work. So the goal, where do we want to go with this work? Why we know why we want to do it, but here we've got to have equity and communication, and we've got to figure out how we can have systemic and inclusive practices, not just in one school, but in all schools across a district. There is no one way to do this work, so I'm going to share with you what we're doing, and maybe it's something that you can take back and embrace and do in your school or your school district. But no, there's no one way. We just got to get started and get on that journey and learn together. So today I want to focus on some things that we've done, and I want to go through helping you understand the purpose for our work, procedures around our work, processes around our work, the professional development that we're doing to drive change. And then I want to focus on the term patience, because it takes a lot of patience to do this work. Change will not happen easily. In my office, we like to say this is hard work, but it's also heart work, because you've got to have that passion and that drive to do it. And then you have to, be driven by that passion, even when the work is hard, and it takes a lot of patience. So first of all, I want to talk about the purpose. We want to remove the communication barriers that interfere with our ability to help families get meaningful and timely information. Meaningful means it's in a language they can understand, and timely means that if we send out information, if we communicate with families who speak in English, and then days later we try to give that information out in a different language, then that shows that one group is more important than another. We have to do it in a timely manner so that every family is receiving that information as quickly as possible, at the same time, if possible, as we're sharing information out from the district level or the school level or even the classroom level. I firmly believe this. The way schools care about children is reflected in the way schools care about children's families. And our communication practices, they speak volume about how we feel and what we believe. So we've got to make sure that our practices are telling families that they are welcome, they're valued, we want them to be a partner with us. So in my district, we have created the office that I am the director of. It's the Office of Translation and Interpretation Services. And the mission of my office is to ensure that we're providing language support and assistance to multilingual parents. We want to ensure that we're having equitable communication practices at the school and the district level. We want to ensure meaningful communication so parents can play an active role in their child's educational process and experiences. And we want to make sure that we're supporting the mission of our district, that we're providing a comprehensive educational system and programs that prepare all students for college, career, and life. And our goal is to strengthen those cultural bridges. So a part of my work is, I feel like all day long, one of the interpreters in our office, he told me one day, he said, Miss Rush, you are like a traffic director. You are just making sure that everything that's coming into our office, that it's getting assigned out, and that we're completing our task and we're doing it in a timely manner. And that's true. I feel like all day long, I direct traffic, because we have phone calls coming in from schools and parents asking for services. We have people sending us documents to translate. We have schools and, at the district level, we're getting asked to be present in these meetings and in open house events and so forth. So interpretation services can be provided. And we're trying to meet and do meetings, discipline meetings, parent-teacher conferences, IGP meetings. My staff is being asked to be in all these places and in a timely manner. So you have to know how to direct traffic all day long to meet these needs. I'm a very organized person. I'm very rooted in knowing details and handling creating procedures and processes. And that's one of the essential roles that I play each and every day, directing this traffic so we can meet the needs of families. In order for us to do all this work and to manage this volume of work, schools have to understand who needs services. So of course, the home language survey is a critical part of making all this work, all this information work. We have embedded this survey into our enrollment process. We have a total online enrollment process. This year, there is a new enrollment survey through the State Department, the DIA form, and it requires that all schools within their registration process that they're doing the home language survey, which gives you critical information to decide if a student needs services. But also, a part of our home language survey in the past has included the questions about what communication do you want in terms of written and oral communication, and what language do you want to receive that information. So now that is separated a little bit out from the home language survey in the layout of our enrollment process, but it is in the enrollment process. And this year we asked every single family in our district to go through, do the online enrollment process and make sure that they had updated their communication preferences. And that's the information that we use. It goes into PowerSchool, and we help all our schools know how to easily access that information to determine what families need support in terms of communication. So we have done a lot of work. Once you have that critical information about the needs and the preferences of families, then you have to decide, what are we going to translate, and when do we need to provide interpretation services? Now, if you know anything about the Department of Justice, they have a wealth of resources identifying what is considered as essential information. There are many individuals who do not know what we mean by essential information. So when you get this slide deck, you can click right here on this visual, and it will link out to a Department of Justice document, and it tells you what's considered essential information. And as you can imagine, it's report card information. It's any information about services, especially when you're looking at SPED services or gifted and talented services. Families have to be involved. They have to give consent for their student or their child to participate in any of these services and programs, and they need to be at the decision-making table, and their voice needs to be heard. And if you do not provide translated materials, if you do not have an interpreter present at these meetings, then you are violating the federal civil rights laws and the needs of families. So you have to know this information. It's not you get to, well, maybe I'll have time to learn this. No, as educators, we have to know this information. Also, you need to make sure that if there's any type of medical information, everything that we've gone through with COVID and services.
Are you watching a video?
In terms of, how we're providing online instruction or anything about shots and all that stuff.
Alvaro over there in kindergarten.
We needed to have that
on his
information.
chart, he just has a 1. Wasn't he a 1.5?
I'm getting some feedback from someone. I think someone needs
it's a 1.0.
Can someone mute? But nonetheless, you have to understand the essential information and the requirements. So we have done extensive training in my district, helping schools understand what's considered as essential information. And one thing that I always say to schools as well is, if it's important enough to share with an English speaking family, then it's important to share with all families. So that needs to be that compass by which you decide what to translate and when to have an interpreter present. We have in our district a portal where schools can make requests for services. We call it the CCSC Language Access Portal. And we have a user guide where we guide schools in terms of how to go into the portal, how to make a request. You have to do a lot of training with schools to help them understand the difference between the term translation and interpretation. I tell people often think about that T and text. Translation is the written text, interpretation is oral communication, and people use those terms interchangeably all the time. But when you're making requests, you need to clearly know what you're asking for. So we do professional development around those terms, around essential information, but specifically how to use our portal. And in every school, we have someone designated as the multilingual learner liaison, and they meet with me each month, and we go through how to use the portal, how to support teachers with using the portal. We do, I show them requests that had mistakes and how we fix them and so forth. And we go through best practices in terms of communication with families, using plain language and so forth. So we have built in that opportunity for them to work with me, and we definitely work on the use of the portal. Now, and you also have to, if you're doing this work and you're doing it well, one thing is to help schools understand what resources do they have. Do you have a plan for how to support schools? Because there are so many different scenarios that can happen in any given day, and people need to understand what resources they have. So we have documents like you see here. I blacked out some of the specific vendors that we use, because this is not about promoting a vendor. This is about promoting procedures and practices. But we talk about when would you need to use our office. And on this document, there's hyperlinks, and they can link out to essential information forms and so forth. But we tell them, when is the appropriate time to reach out to our office for services. For example, we have in our Office of Exceptional Children, we have a interpreter and translator specifically for IEP meetings. So, that's a one time when you would definitely want to reach out to our office if you have an upcoming IEP meeting and you need someone to support you with the translation of the documents that will go to tell the family about the meeting, any translation of documents for the meeting, and any follow-up documents after the meeting. Then, of course, you need to work with our office in order to make all that happen. But then also we have some resources that contain certain documents like standard field trip forms that they could have access to in a variety of different languages. So we have some resources where they could get standard documents that maybe aren't CCSC documents, but ones that you could retrieve quickly and use for different scenarios. Then also we have a service where they have interpreting over the phone interpreting services in a variety of different languages. You have to train people on how to use these services and to use them effectively. And lots of times people will say, we use over the phone interpretation services, but I wonder how often they do training around how to use those services and use them effectively. And then we are focused heavily on getting bilingual staff in our buildings trained so that they can support the day-to-day work in schools. You have to make sure in your schools that people realize that bilingual does not equate to interpreter and translator. And oftentimes that's where people get in trouble. They find the Spanish teacher down the hall and they say, hey, we have a parent in the front office. Will you handle this for us? And you can't do that. You can't grab students and let them be interpreters. And you have to invest time in hiring bilingual staff and training bilingual staff. So we have lots of different resources for our schools, but then we also have procedures and processes for using these resources. For example, here, I have created different scenarios for schools on how do you go about deciding when to translate a document and which resource to use. How do you do that for interpretation services? So there's lots of resources to guide and support schools. And what I've seen in my role is this is what's missing across our state and across our nation, we don't have procedures and processes to help educators know what to do. We expect a lot, but we don't show a lot. And that's my mission in this work, to make it clear to schools on what resources they have, when to use them, how to use them. So in order to do all of that, you have to have a professional development plan. Like Mark Twain says here, one must travel to learn, and learning is essential to all this work. So I want to kind of just give you a big picture of some things that we're doing to invest in our people and to have a strong professional development plan. I know many of you are familiar with doing Safe Schools videos at the beginning of each year. Well, we built out our own Safe School module for meeting the communication needs of our multilingual families. So every employee in our district prior to August 16th had to watch this module and take a quick little quiz to make sure that they could understand some of the information that I've included here, being able to know what the term multilingual learner means, what information must be translated, what do we consider as essential information, how do you know what language a family has requested. It gives, best practices. And you have to complete this by August 16th, or you do get an email from our HR department, because we value all our employees understanding this information. And they have to do it every year, just like you do with bloodborne pathogens. You have to do this particular module. Now, this is not one, it's just an overview, but it keeps this information on everyone's mind so that they're thinking about the requirements. And then I mentioned to you that I work monthly with a liaison in every single building. For example, this like here shows you some things that we did last year. It shows you me, going over all of the resources with this liaison, teaching them how to use the portal, giving them tips on communication practices. And they meet with me every month to do this. And then also, we have, I mentioned to you that we're investing in our bilingual staff, because we don't want people to use bilingual staff inappropriately. So schools can reach out to my office and they can identify which individuals they would like to get more extensive training on how to do some general type translation task in their school, such as a newsletter or an email. They would never be translating official documents, IEP documents, anything like that. That comes through my office. But we want to help them to be able to do some of those general day-to-day types of assignments. So we have created courses that bilingual staff can participate in, and we let them, they do those courses. They have to take an exam that's embedded in the course. And we do these throughout the year to support our bilingual staff. Then also, we meet every month with bilingual staff members. Most of the individuals that we're meeting with are considered as bilingual secretaries. We're kind of playing around with a new term for those individuals. Maybe it is cultural assistant, because we don't want them to be seen as much in that clerical role as more so into the communication role. But we meet with them every month as well. And then we do lots of activities to help them create that environment. We know that front office staff is the hub for lots of activities, but we also know that many families may never get past that office. They may not be going out into the classrooms. They may be in that office more so, and that office has to set that setting for that welcoming environment. So we teach them about how do you do that. We also do lots of things in terms of resources in our community that they can connect families with. You can see here one activity where we talked about what are the do's and don'ts for bilingual staff members, so that no one puts themselves in a situation where they're doing something that they're not allowed to do. So we meet with people. We met with them this summer. I kind of wanted to show you, a couple more things. We met with individuals who are going to be assisting somewhat with special education meetings. We go through, days and days of training and support for anyone that's going to do that in our district. And then also we have lots of resources for our bilingual staff members we have created toolkits that have lots of glossaries of terms, so that if you are supporting certain types of meetings, that you have all the resources you need to know the vocabulary and to support that work. And then you have coaching meetings with people on my staff or individuals in the special ed department to guide and support that work. Also, I want you to know that we are doing a lot to teach teachers how to work with interpreters. Many teachers have never had any training, and we say have an interpreter at a meeting, but they don't know what that looks like. They don't understand how that looks. So we have created resources here that gives them tips on how to do a conference, what to do before, during, and after a conference. Let me see if I can get back to the screen. Going back to some of the work that we've done with bilingual secretaries, even this summer, we did an extensive training. They met with us every week for 2 weeks, and we went through, we had a summer institute with them. And as you can see there, we gave them tech tips for translating documents. We did a book study with them on cultural awareness, and we gave them lots of resources. And they actually worked with many of my staff members to talk about things you don't translate, or how to turn your keyboard into a keyboard where you can go in and out of different languages, and giving them tips on, using the vocabulary terms and so forth that we're trying to be consistent with across our district. So we're investing a lot of time in our staff to make sure we have, according to the Department of Justice, you need to have appropriate and competent people working in these roles. And it comes with layers and layers of professional development. Also, my office, we have created a glossary. And if you'll look down here at the terms, as schools make requests from us, we're building out a glossary of common terms that we're seeing. And then we're sharing these terms with people in schools. So we're getting consistency in our language that we're using. For example, the other day, we had an extensive conversation on the term open house, and how if you use Google Translate and you get a literal translation of open house, it's probably not going to help a family understand what a school means when they say, come to our open house. So these are the conversations we're having so that we can give meaning communication to our families. And then also schools can make requests for things to be added to our glossary based on their experiences and their needs, or they can give us comments when they think maybe the word isn't the right match, because we know we have so many different dialects even within the Spanish language. And then this is my team. I show them here collaborating, because translation interpretation requires a lot of thought, and it requires a lot of checking each other and having conversations. And this is the culture that we've built within our office. And it's one reason why we're also working with so many bilingual staff members in our schools, so that they will call us and collaborate with us, so that we're working together to improve our practices. It's a teamwork, of course. And I want you to just see my staff out in action. They are part of conferences. They go to school events. We offer district level events where we're present, and we're making sure that people know about our services, that they're free, and that that is what we should be providing as a district to our multilingual families. We are part of virtual events. This morning, I had one of my interpreters working with on a community meeting, and we used the interpretation feature through Zoom. And we practiced, and we made sure we were ready for this event so that all families can get information at the school, classroom, district levels. And I just want to give you a little bit more about what we do. For example, a school will submit a flyer like this to our office, and then we will translate it so that they can send it out to families, not just in English. And then this event, if you will look here, this is my interpreter right here. She paired with that principal. We called that principal. We had a meeting with him, and we prepared. He told us what he wanted to say. He gave us a script, and she knew all of the words and the terminology, so that when she got there, she was going to be able to communicate effectively. And because of the work, the collaboration between my office, we also have a parent advocate that's in that school. and the school, look at the turnout that we were able to have for this event, because they called using interpretation services. They sent out, this information. Parents got the information in a language they could understand. And when you provide the supports, they will come and they will be a part of this work. This is just another one, and I have a quick video I want to show about this one. But here, once again, this particular school paired with us and a parent advocate, and what they did is they sent out a survey in Spanish asking Spanish-speaking families, what can we do for you? They got the feedback from the families, and then they designed an entire event just for Spanish-speaking families. And then they gave us this information. We translated it for them. The families came and they designed the whole night based on their needs. So I'm going to we're going to watch that quick video. Let me go to the next page. I think, can you display if I hit stop sharing?
Yes, no problem. Give me 1 second. Let's see here.
And then Kids Cafe, which we have right here at the Johns Island Library.
Y ese Kids Cafe que está ubicada ahí en la biblioteca de Johns Island.
And your student can go right after school and get a free snack.
Y el estudiante directo después de la escuela puede ir cada día ahí para una merienda gratis.
And then check out some books.
Y también puede leer.
Today's event was called the Multilingual Family Fair. And the idea was we reached out to our multilingual families via survey and wanted to know what it was they needed from us as a school. And the reply was, it was huge. We had so many responses via phone call, email, the handwritten survey itself. And a lot of the response was wanting more academic help, so math, literacy help. So 2 of the rooms are the math and literacy room, where we pre-recorded videos with take-home materials, so they're able to learn how to play the activity here and then use it again at home.
En este ejemplo, el jugador número 1 escogió el múltiplo 12. El jugador 2.
And then another thing was the technology and kind of the basic needs. So email help, parent portal help, working on just getting a correct email address. And then again, the basic needs, so school uniforms, school supplies, anything that they could take home were the big needs from this one survey.
We are here to support not only your children, but also you as a family. We encourage you to be involved in our School Improvement Council, in our PTA, because you matter to us. Thank you.
You could tell in the faces of our multilingual families how they feel valued, and most importantly that they are receiving communication in their language and they feel in the loop. It's very difficult for multilingual families that are coming from different countries to adapt into a country with just a culture, a whole new culture, and learning a language that they don't know.
So being able to open the doors and allow the families to come back into the school who, maybe it's their first time being here because they've, or kindergarten family, they've never really been inside the building. So having that opportunity to bring their families here is just phenomenal.
I would like to add that I'm just so excited to be a part of this office and to make a huge difference within CCSD and within our multilingual community as well.
Doesn't matter, she's not one of yours.
That is just a proud moment for me, because I know the amount of work it took to get to do an event like that, and the partnership it took between the district level resources and the school level resources. And I'm not sure if you noticed in the video, but one of the parent advocates, she was out on the stage, and after the principal talked, then she shared all that information in Spanish, and she has gone through all of our courses so that she's able to do that. But it it's wonderful to see that. But she actually worked with all the teachers to do all those pre-recorded videos so that when they went home, they knew how to do that math activity with their child, and they had guidance from someone going through all of the instructions in Spanish. It takes a lot of work to do that, but it happens when you focus your energy and your resources on doing this work. You can make it happen. And I showcased this event in one of my meetings with multilingual learner liaisons. And one of those liaisons is actually a principal of a school. And then she went back, and 2 weeks ago, this happened at the end of last year, and she went back 2 weeks ago and did this whole event in her school as a part of a open house event. And if you saw the lady in red, that's one of my interpreters and translators. She translated everything for every single station that they went to. And then she went to the event and she could talk about everything with the families because she was invested in the work just like the school. So it's a wonderful partnership. It is that hard work, and we love doing this for schools and for families. I also want you to see a suite of different resources that we're doing. We have a bus app that it was only in English. So we made this bus app in Spanish. When we talked about teaching families how to do the COVID at home test, we did the video in Spanish. When they were talking about free and reduced lunch options, we created the video in Spanish and in the registration portal. And if you will look, this is very important to me. The quality of the Spanish translations and the videos have to be equal to the quality of the English. We're not going to say an English family, you're going to get this great video, it's going to look good, and over here, you're just going to get something that's simple because that's all we can do. No, this work matters, and we show families that they matter in the quality of the presentations that we do with our information. Also, my office, they call us Otis, the Office of Translation and Interpretation Services. That's a lot to say. So they call us Otis. Our new slogan is Notice Otis, because we want the schools to use us. We want families to know about us. So we put out a newsletter each month to schools. And for example, we have conferences coming up. There's a link to the conference tips, things that I share with you, things that we're seeing and learning in schools. We embed that. You know, we even talk about commonly misused words and things like that you have to be cautious of when you're doing translation, but we provide this information to our schools. I want to say that this work is hard, and sometimes you don't know exactly where to go and what to do or how to meet all the needs, but you have to keep traveling. You have to be okay with some of the hazards. There's going to be resistance to change. Some people may say it's unrealistic to be able to do this type of work and to put this much energy or funding into it. You'll have people who say, we've got all these priorities. Is this our top priority? You've got people who politically may say, I hear it all the time, if you come to this country, you need to speak English. There are people who believe that, and sometimes that might be a roadblock to doing the work. There's so many different dialects that, you know, it's hard to get consistency, and you see all the efforts we're making to get that consistency. Some people are scared. If you tell a teacher to use an interpreter, they may not know what to do. You know, this is kind of, you don't know the path, and it is kind of a lot of fear, and it takes a lot of time, but we can't let these roadblocks keep us from doing what is legally our obligation, but it also what's morally right if we want all families to be involved in their child's education. So, you know, I feel like we've done a lot to try to get to where we want to be. We're a little bit closer, but there's so much more work to do. And these are the type of questions that guide my work each and every day. You know, when we do something and it doesn't go just right, then you've got to change it and be willing to stop sometimes and look at that map or create a new map. But you've got to get on the road and start doing this work. It's so rewarding. And, you know, I'm just excited to be here today. It's a big journey. I have embraced this journey. I hope you will embrace this journey. And I hope you've gotten just a little bit of some information or resources to get you started. But also, I love sharing. And if there's anyone who needs more information, you can always reach out to me, and I will be very happy to support your work as well. So are there any questions?
I put a question in the chat.
Okay. Can someone share the question with me?
I said, how did the school district get to the point that they saw the need and spent the money to open the Otis?
Well, with full transparency, this is my second year in Charleston County School District. I just moved here last year to take on this work and to lead this department and make all this happen. But prior to my coming here, there was a Department of Justice investigation at any time. And I don't know if school districts realize this, but one parent can contact the Department of Justice and have a complaint that they didn't get a service, or maybe they weren't aware of something. And that can launch an investigation into the practices within your district. So, I think this is probably happening more now than in the past. I know there's 2 districts in South Carolina right now with agreements with the Department of Justice, but across the nation, there are many districts with settlement agreements based on their communication practices. So once there was, we made this agreement with the Department of Justice, then we really started putting that laser-like focus on making sure that we were meeting the needs of our families.
Okay. So kind of, it took something that drastic to happen.
I now, like I said, I'm new to the district and I'm here focused on this work, but I do think sometimes that might be the case in some districts. I don't know that everybody realizes their federal obligation to meet the needs of families. I think sometimes we think, well, we don't have enough money or we don't have enough resources, but you have to figure this out because it's a part of your obligation as an educational institution. You don't get to decide if you want to. It is a requirement.
Are you, is your video something that you use privately, or is it something you would be willing to distribute?
Yeah, that video is fine. We actually put it on our Facebook, our district Facebook account. So yes, it is public information.
So Charleston County School District Facebook account.
Yes.
Okay,
yes, but you
in
this link, if you have, if I think you're going to give a link to the slide deck to everyone, it's embedded in there so anyone can watch it. Any other questions? I hope we have some questions.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
One thing I do love about what we do here in our district is we work directly with our families, and we work with the same families over a period of years until, you know, they graduate out of the schools that we serve. How do y'all, like when you're getting phone calls to like a general office, would you have that family assigned an interpreter so that that family would know that interpreter? Because I think I would miss the personal touch that I have with those families.
Yeah, the one thing you have to be cautious about is we also have a department that's under we did call it the ESOL department, but we're trying now to switch maybe to the term multilingual learner program. But housed in there are parent advocates, because what you have to make sure is when you serve as an interpreter, you have to have an unbiased role. So if you're not careful and you build these relationships with families, then it may interfere with your ability to be an interpreter. So I think in your district, you have to decide who's going to be the parent advocate and who's going to be an interpreter and translator. And you have to be very careful not to mix the two because of that need to be unbiased.
I see that. Thank you.
And when I say parent advocates, you saw one in the video. She is a district level employee who's bilingual, but she is assigned to various schools as a parent advocate.
Okay.
Angela, this is Karen Utter, and I saw another question in the chat you might want to answer. So it asks, would these courses be available to bilingual staff outside your district? They sound very interesting.
I think I could give you some information about some of the consultants we use to do that work. You know, we fund these courses, and I work specifically with a consultant who is working to actually get a national certification created in translation and interpretation in education. You can get a national certificate in health. You can get a national certificate in the legal field, but currently there's not a national certificate in educational translation and interpretation. So I was very strategic in who I chose to pair with, so that knowing that we're building out modules and support that could help lead people to a certification based on the coursework that we're providing. So I think in your district, I would be more than willing to share who I work with, but I don't think that I would actually be able to enroll someone in our courses.
And then
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Utter. This is John Dixon. You can go ahead. I'll wait for you.
I had a quick question. Just that the work is so great, and I just wondered if you are able, or if you have plans to, because I know this would be another layer of funding and work, but to do any evaluation, not just of the quality of your language assistance services, but if you're able to collect any data about how it's impacting the level of family engagement and so forth, because I think that would be powerful in terms of persuading districts to spend more time and money on this.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because I think in my introduction, you heard that I am working on my EDD in transformational leadership. And a part of how I design my study for my dissertation is to do that type of research, to see how it is impacting family engagement, their willingness to, communicate with the school, to be involved in the school based on having services. For example, if you look at Angel Oak and the amount of work, like they had food banks set up there, they had all of the resources. Everything was designed around what the parent felt they needed, and we flooded them with support for the language component. So I think, does that impact their ability to want to be at the school? I think that's a critical information. And so I'm trying to actually do some of that research as well.
Okay. Angela, I want to ask you a question about, early in your presentation, you said something about maybe, let's say you're in a situation where a staff member is called upon with to help a family that speaks another language. And let's say you're privy to that as the parent advocate or the parent engagement specialist. What would be a next move as a parent advocate? What would be like the next thing that a person should do to in that situation? You're like, it's sort of like an emergency right now, but what best practices speaking, what would be the next thing to do to really help that family?
Well, I'm glad that you said that term emergency. We're never going to say in a situation where there's an emergency, you've got to get in contact with that family. And let's just say someone didn't know how to use the phone interpretation service, or, there's just in the heat of the moment, you just grab someone. That's probably going to happen realistically in a school setting. But if it does happen, then your next immediate response, once everything calms down, is to make sure you use someone who is certified or qualified to do that, to follow back up with the parent and say, we want to make sure that you understand this information that we had to share. We want to follow up and make sure there's no confusion with that. So you need to have a plan in place. If you use someone in the heat of the moment, in an emergency type situation, the next step is to make sure you clarify with a translation that's been checked, or a phone call with an interpreter, or a meeting with the family with an interpreter. Does that help answer your question?
Oh, it does. And I really feel like I kind of dropped the ball in a situation, because I kept having these feelings that there was something else I should have done, because it was an emergency situation. And I was like, well, I wonder, did this family, did they really get it? Because it was like a transfer situation with the student coming to a new school, and they were going to be there at our school. But thank you so much. And I see now, so whenever that does happen, as you said, it's inevitable. It probably will happen in most schools. Now I know to really follow up. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions? Well, I just want to say in closing, this is work that's very important, and it's dear to me because I feel like all of our work should have purpose and have meaning, and every child, not just my child, deserves a parent who's involved and who has the ability to be involved. A parent can't be at the decision-making table. Their voice can't be heard if they can't communicate with the school. And, this is important work. I hope today that you feel that sense of urgency from a legal standpoint. But as educators, I know that you want to do right by families, and we want to increase engagement, and we want to do all we can for families. And you got to get on that road. You got to start traveling in the right direction. You just can't keep that windshield that's blank and say, hey, I can't see. You got to figure it out. And there's a lot of people like me that's trying to make this work happen. So connect with people, ask questions, learn from what other people are doing. I believe in letting your mess be your message. And it's not great that our district has a settlement agreement, but you take that and you learn from it and you grow from it, and you use any of the mess to have a message about, hey, this is how you get it right. And I hope this has highlighted the journey that we're on and our commitment as a district. Our superintendent, everyone in our leadership values this work, and they're helping me by supporting our office. And I think our district's doing great work, and we've got a lot more to do, and we are committed to this journey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Angela, and thanks everyone. We will see you back here around 1 o'clock after lunch.
Thank you.